Hi guys, we are in week 13 and you are doing your speech this week. So before you do any of the springboard activities, I want you to write your speech. So you should have some pretty good outlines for it from last week where you looked at the rhetorical devices and the rhetorical appeals that you were going to use and your claim and your support and your counterclaim. So now I want you to draft your speech. Actually write it out, all right? Don't just wing it from notes, but write out your speech so you know what you're going to say. Just like we see speeches written out in the springboard activities that we've read, you're going to write out your speech, all right? So do that, and then we are going to look at delivering our speech this week. So we are going to actually watch and listen to a couple speeches. The first one is Franklin Roosevelt's inaugural speech. So I've got a link there. Watch that, and as you watch that, I want you to listen to how he's saying the words. So we've just read speeches so far. That doesn't really, a speech is something you hear, right? So I want you to listen to it. Pay attention to how his volume increases or decreases. Sometimes he's going to say things louder, sometimes softer. Sometimes he might pause. That pause is intentional because it amplifies something, right? There's a reason for that pause. He wants us to focus on something. He might slow down or speed up depending on what he's saying, so watch for that, all right? Then I want you to think about your own speech. When might you pause? When might you slow down or speed up? When might you talk louder in your speech? I want to see that happening, all right? So when you give your speech to me, I want you guys to be showing me those skills, to show me the change in your voice or the pausing or something like that. So I want you to, after seeing Franklin Roosevelt's speech, I want you to practice that with a friend or a family member. Give your speech to somebody practicing using your vocals, right? Activity 2.24, we are going to look at syntax again. Sorry, my eye is like hurting. So remember, syntax is the way a sentence is phrased, how the words are rearranged, all right? So there's a few different types of sentence lengths. There's telegraphic sentences. Those are super short, like 5-word sentences. Those have an impact though. If you had a bunch of super short sentences all in a row, that choppiness kind of sends a message, right? There's also short sentences, so 5 words or more in length. Medium sentences, about 18 words, and then long sentences. Really, those might be really descriptive sentences, painting a picture or something like that, illustrating something. Those are long sentences, okay? So I want you to read and listen to Kennedy's inaugural address. All these presidents have all these speeches. So pay attention to his syntax as you read and listen to that, okay? So I've got a link there so you guys can listen to that on YouTube. And I want you guys to fill out this graphic organizer. So as you're listening and watching, just have this graphic organizer up so you can follow along and type it in when you see that. I want you to look for repetition. So when does he repeat a word or phrase? Look for parallel structure. So that's when you use the same structure in a sentence repeatedly. So I've got an example here. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. See how it's the same structure? If you can't this, then this. If you can't this, then this. So same structure. An analogy when he's comparing two things. Allusions, we talked about that last week, like a reference to someone or something else, like a Bible reference or a reference to another person. Anaphora, we didn't talk about last week, but it was on I think it was on the list. Anaphora is just a repetition of the first part of the sentence. Speakers do that a lot, actually. And then there's metaphors. That's just like comparisons, figurative language. All right? So look at that speech, pay attention to those rhetorical devices, and fill in that graphic organizer. All right? Now, springboard activity 2.25. We're going to look at vocal delivery again. So in the chart below, there's two different things about vocal delivery. There's like the physical part of it. That's how loud you are. That's how smooth your delivery is, or if you're like can't get words out or your voice is quivering. Gestures that you might make, just like this. Dramatic pauses that you might have, and movement. So are you moving while you're saying something, or exaggerated, it may be hands gestures, could be movement if you're doing something bigger than just a little gesture. Then there's the rhetorical elements. So we've talked about all those rhetoric devices like alliteration and allusion and anaphora, all those. So you're going to listen to 2 speeches. So I've got the links for them here. Listen to the 2 speeches, and I want you guys to fill out the graphic organizer telling me what the physical aspects of the speech were. So like the first one's Martin Luther King. Tell me physically, what did he do with his volume, his gestures, and that sort of thing. And then rhetorically, what were some rhetorical devices that you noticed? All right, so do that in both of the speeches there. There are 2 speeches that you need to watch and analyze for the physical aspects and the rhetorical aspects of those speeches. All right, then one last look at your speech. Make sure you think about physically what you're going to do with your voice, your pauses, your gestures, rhetorically what you've done. Make sure you have all those components in your speech because I'll be looking for those, all right? Then I want you to pay attention. I might write it in the announcements because dates can change, so I don't want to record it and then the date changes or something like that. So look in the announcements, and I will give you guys the options for when we can do our speeches, all right? So you will either be videotaping yourself and sending that to me somehow if you can't make it to one of our CVVL sessions, or we'll be meeting at the CVVL building on the date I've got on the announcements to do our speeches, all right? So one way or another, you have to get me your speech, okay? You're either going to do it in person or on video, and I will have that information on the announcements so it doesn't change and I have to redo this whole video, all right? It's an embedded assessment, so make sure you get it done. It's very important to your grade. If you need any help, I'm here, all right? So communicate with me, especially this week since we'll somehow be meeting either like you'll be sending me your video or we'll be meeting at CVVL. So communicate with me if something happens and you can't show up or something goes wrong and you can't videotape yourself. Communication is big this week, all right? So talk to me if you need help, and I will see you guys next week when we start a new unit, all right? Bye-bye.